My favorite week of the year, Valentine's Day, or as some of you refer to it, Singles Awareness Day. Now, I don't want you leaving here today thinking that I hate love. I don't, but oh my goodness, we have some work to do on the consciousness of the planet. So we are looking this month at this wonderful theme about, I think really the only question that matters at the end of our lives is, how well did you love? Right? Not what did you do, what did you accomplish, not any of that. How well did you love? So last week we looked at the idea of learning to love ourselves as the very basis for doing happy, right, wholesome life. That until we get that relationship right with ourselves, then we spend all this time and all this energy trying to correct the world around us. You know that? You know how that goes? How's it going? Not so well. Right? We think that because out of that misconception, we do things like think that if we just find that right and perfect person, then we will experience love and we will live happily ever after. And we have so much evidence for that, right? Because isn't that how it was for you and all of your friends? And yet, that's the message, isn't it? And we're bombarded with this wonderful message. Just for fun, I decided I'd Google, I forget what the exact search was, but most amazing affairs or most amazing love affairs or something. Top 10. So, oh my goodness, you have to try this at home this week. It is a very enlightening experience. So, of course, you get all these lists because that's what people do on the internet. And so the top 10 starts with Romeo and Juliet. Aww. Of course, they both ended up dead. It was great up until then, though, right? And then you go through Anthony and Cleopatra, and that didn't work out. So, I mean, you go through this list and you go, oh my God, this is our model? Right? And then you say, well, I can't take this anymore. I'm going to go see a movie. What looks like fun? Oh, there's a lovely romantic comedy. Now, every romantic comedy movie that was ever made is this. He and she would never get along. Completely different. Oh, it'll never work. And there's friction and but somehow, through the course of events, they fall in love. They live happily ever after. Because that's how life is. So, well, that's not working. I think I'll read some stories. In fact, I'll read these little stories to my beloved child to give them a model for how life should be. About how being a princess, incapable of your own right, and all you need is some Prince Charming to come into your life and awaken you from your distress. So they tell me about half of all marriages end in divorce. And I have to think that the mythology that we talk about has something to do with that. That people have this misconception about life that shows up and then, I don't know. I just want you to know, I feel like I can speak to this subject today because nobody has done more relationships worse than me. So I have a whole warehouse of information on how not to do this, okay? Just in case you were wondering. But when we get it, that it is about becoming conscious. It is about becoming aware. That we begin a new journey. And so last week we talked from David Rico's wonderful book about the 5 things you can't change. And getting okay with that there's some things in life that are not going to change. And you can be mad about it. You can throw a fit about it. You can even hold your breath if it makes you feel better. But it's still not going to change. So why not make peace with the fact that sometimes people are going to disappoint you? They're human. Sometimes you're going to disappoint yourself. You're human. Sometimes your life is not going to go according to your plan. I know this is shocking information. And yet we're shocked when it happens in our life. Right? How many of you have had your life turn out exactly the way you planned it? You know, the lights are a little dark, but I'm not seeing a lot of hands. And so here's what I know, is that sometimes our human disappointment is our divine appointment. That the things that fell apart are actually the entree into a life that works. So sometimes trying to be in an old model of relationship and it doesn't work becomes an invitation to doing it differently. I remember at the point I said to myself, we're not going to do this anymore. If it ain't healthy, I'd just as soon be single because this is not working. Interestingly, it became the entree into this amazing relationship that I ended up in. Funny how that works. So today I want to talk from David Richo's other favorite book of mine, which is called, ready? How to Be an Adult in Relationship. You interested or no? Not at all. Okay. Should I wait till next week? We'll have that conversation after he doesn't call or doesn't bring you the flowers you wanted or whatever, right? Or I'll just set you up this week to win, okay? So I love this idea because what I know is it is about becoming conscious. For those of us in this room, for those of us on this journey, we are learning to be more conscious individuals. We are bringing mindfulness to our daily living. And until we get this, we tend to live our lives out of our unconscious, out of our subconscious. We tend to live our lives out of those stories that we have maybe never even aware of taking it on, but we've taken on stories about how life should be. And then we're hurt and we're disappointed and we're frustrated and all that sort of thing. But when we move into that awareness that we are not separate from the divine, but rather we live and move and have our being in the presence of the divine, that the divine has its life through us, then we realize we're not separate from the love. We don't have to go in search of love. We have to reveal greater love. So David Richo in this wonderful book says, here's what we want to do. He says that by weaving a spiritual practice of mindfulness as a way to stay present in relationship, adult love becomes a sustained, unconditional giving of the 5 A's. And you're asking, what are the 5 A's, Marty? And I'm not going to tell you. Get your own book. Do I have to do everything for you? Jeez. Okay, I'll tell you because I'm in a good mood. I'm in a loving mood today. Thank you for that. So he says the 5 A's: attention, acceptance, appreciation, affection, allowing. That feels healthy just in itself, doesn't it? No stalking, no... You won't hear manipulation anywhere in there, right? All that crazy stuff we do when we're crazy. Have you ever noticed that when you're crazy, you do crazy stuff? And I'll tell you, for some of us, relationship brings out the full-blown crazy, doesn't it? So what gets in the way of that? And only this: fear, desire for our demands and expectations to be met on our terms. Go ahead, be yourself. Just do it this way. Right? Judgment. Sometimes we judge other people in spite of all of our great spiritual work. Control. Right? Because we love to control other people. It works so darn well. And illusion. Those are the only things that get in the way of you having the kinds of relationships you want. So just stop doing that and we'll be fine. So he goes on to say, here's what we want to look at these 5 A's. Attention. Attention to others by hearing what they are saying and noticing what they are feeling. Simple enough. But look at how much time we spend paying attention to what we're thinking and what we're feeling, even as the beloved is in front of us sharing. Some of us have even been known to be preparing our response while the other is speaking. He's saying, just pay attention. Listen. Listen. Feel with the other. Then he goes on to say, accept, and this, just by the way, all of this applies to self. In fact, if you practice with self, it becomes easier with others. Acceptance. Acceptance of others just as they are, with all of their light and also their shadows. You see, all of us are incomplete. None of us, well, myself accepted, but I don't like to say you and me, but are working through our dharma and our karma and all our other things that we have going on, right? We're all in this process of revealing. We're already spiritually whole, perfect beings, but in the human form, it becomes about revealing more and more of that into expression, right? And so we've chose a perfect vehicle called being human, on a perfect time, right, called now, on a perfect planet to do that. So we get to come to this school and learn more about becoming conscious, becoming aware, about embracing that divine self and living more fully into the world. And so when we do that, we can accept ourselves for the fullness of who we are. In fact, one of the great dangers we have is we think, oh, if anybody knew about my shadow side, they wouldn't love me. So I'm going to give you this other version and pretend like I don't have that going on. But you know what? The shadow will show up. So why not embrace it and own it and allow it to be part of the unfolding healing process of who we are? He goes on to say the other A is appreciation. Appreciation of others' gifts, their limits, and their unique, poignant predicaments. I love that. You see, we all have a predicament, don't we? Every one of us. It's part of why we're here. We're each trying to figure out something. Anybody figured it all out yet? I want to make sure I got the right audience here, okay? We're all trying to figure out something. That's why we're here. What we're trying to do is bring more and more of the divine into the world. But you see, what we do sometimes in relationship is we don't accept that, and we think that they ought to be different. And then we're mad when they're not. Right? Oh, how dare they? So we're all in a process. He says we want to show affection in holding and touching in respectful ways. And then he goes on to say, and here's the big one, you want to take a breath, grab a drink, whatever, because here we go. Allowing others to make their own choices rather than the ones we think best for them. Take another breath. You mean to tell me that I should allow others to make their own choices? Now, let me give you a personal example. I was a minister for 10 years. And then I met my partner who was becoming a minister, graduated from School of Ministry. We fell in love. We decided we'd move to Sun Valley, and I would step out of pulpit ministry, and he would be the full-time minister. Now imagine, there you are, sitting next to the font of all knowledge and not taking advantage of that. How foolish could you possibly be? And yet apparently he had his own concept of doing ministry and knowing what to do and all that sort of thing. So I said, for the first 2 years, my daily prayer was, Lord, help me keep my mouth shut. I discovered that unless they ask, your opinion is not welcome. So this is so true with everyone. We think we've figured out something a lot about life, and that gives us the right to tell others how they ought to run their life. You notice that? And I know, you know how welcome it is when your mom calls you and tells you how you ought to be doing your life, right? Thanks. I never thought of that. I'm so glad you shared, right? And yet, again, so this wonderful thing about allowing others to make their own choices, and I would add, and to allow them to experience the consequences of their choices. Because the other way we get really twisted and weird in relationship is we let people make their own choices, it doesn't work, and we want to save them. Because we're so darn loving. What could be more loving than being an enabling, codependent fool, right? Am I hitting too close to home? Anybody getting me uncomfortable? So that's not so hard. That's all you need to do. Stop being judgmental and fearful and all that other stuff and just start being accepting and allowing and all that sort of thing. And so here's the great gift. That when we choose to be in relationship, and we are always in relationship, then we get to choose whether we will be conscious and mindful, or whether we will allow ourselves to move into levels of unconscious. Now, I'm not just talking about with that person that you have chosen to be in the, I always love the term, significant relationship, my significant other, which makes everybody else insignificant. Thank you. What if they're all significant? What if every moment of every day is significant? What if the person right in front of you is significant? Wow, that might change my perspective a little bit. But but in every relationship, all of these rules apply, particularly with ourselves. And so what I have discovered, as we talked about last week, is that as I improved my relationship with myself, both my divine self and my human self, then I found that my relationships began to change around me. I began to find that I no longer needed other people to be different so that I could have the experience of life that I wanted. Somebody recently asked me this very question. They said, how do you do this, meaning this job, with all these people and all their flaws? And I said, it's easy. I love people for who they are, where they are. Because the last thing I want is a flawless congregation. Where would I work? I mean, right? It's like we're all just in this thing together, right? And so we're all in some place of spiritual growth and development. Some of us have got it all handled. Some of us got parts of it handled. Some of us are dreaming of a day when we might think about maybe visioning around having it handled. But we're all here in this human experiment, allowing our divine. And so when we start to work from that place, when we begin to realize that we are indeed spiritual, divine beings, that our divine inheritance is one of wholeness, of love, of joy, of beauty, then we can enter into relationship, all relationship, with a level of consciousness. And so I choose to read, rather than watching sitcoms and romantic comedies as my model for how life should work, I really like to read weird books like Ken Key's A Conscious Person's Guide to Relationship, which I love because he says falling in love is no reason to be in relationship with someone. Meaning that's no reason to get married. I remember a minister friend of mine, great mentor for me, he said, I used to always require people would come in for premarital counseling before they got married. And then I had this realization, like, they're just stupid in love right now. They're seeing this perfect person and, So he's like, I just finally said, okay, let's do the wedding. Here's my card. When it gets real, call me. Right? Because relationship, if we're doing it right, is bringing up our stuff. But we're owning it as our stuff, not theirs. And it becomes the opportunity to grow. I love a wonderful book called Conscious Loving by Katie and Gay Hendricks. Again, this level of consciousness that says, wow, we are in an experiment together of how to be together, how to grow together, how to remain mindful, how to remain conscious. And so when I realize that somebody has pushed my button, it makes me understand I've got a button. And so thank you. Bless you. I give great thanks. You see, here's what we would do well to understand. Love is not a feeling. It is a way of being present. And so as we are willing to be present with another, as we are willing, again, whether this is a romantic loving relationship or whether this is just being in relationship with the world around us, to be present for another, to see the divine. What I love about our spiritual community, I'm so profoundly aware of this, is that we are holding each other in a light. We don't see each other as perfect. None of us have reached, well, again, the obvious exception, but the rest of you have not achieved perfection. But we're all in process, learning and growing and becoming, willing to expand our capacity for love, for joy, for abundance, for peace. And so how good it is to not have to be perfect, but to be in progress, to be in expression. And so when we really begin to appreciate it, there's a lovely thing. This romantic love is a lovely thing. It really is fun and makes great movies and huge dramas and all that sort of thing. Here's how I see romantic love. I sort of see it as God's plan. So God's plan is, I'm going to make puppies really, really cute so that when they chew up your $200 shoes, you don't just throw them out. Oh, you're so cute. Look at that. They make little babies so darn cute. So when they're puking on you and pooping on you and doing all the other stuff that babies do, you're just like, oh, look, isn't it precious? Right? That's what romantic love is. It's like, But until we grow up into that and go, okay, that was fun, and it was, but there's going to come a point where it's going to get real. The fantasy sort of falls away and you go, oh my God. I remember a friend of mine saying to me, now she had lived with her partner for 5 or 7 years. I mean, they'd been together for a while. And they were happy and joyous and they decided they'd get married. I know. She says, it's the oddest thing. All those cute little quirky things that he did and has always done, once we decide we're going to get married, I'm like, oh my God, that's going to be there the rest of our lives. Somehow it wasn't as cute and quirky anymore, right? They worked through it. They're still married, I'm happy to say, right? But it's that whole thing, is that relationship then becomes one more tool for our spiritual growth and unfoldment. That we get to be conscious, we get to be fulfilled, and we're no longer expecting the other, whoever the other is, to fulfill us. We get to be a fulfilled person in right relationship with others. And that, my friends, is a very joyous and wonderful thing. Now, John and I parted about a year ago. We're because we're trendsetters. We did gay marriage before everybody could do that. We went to Canada. And so we're doing gay divorce before. That's really kind of the common thing. But the commitment we have made was, let us be as conscious leaving the relationship as we were going into it. I've been thinking, how wonderful would it be if we did a divorce ceremony? And we said all the kind and wonderful, supportive things as we changed our lives as we do when we're starting. Hey, maybe I know, this is crazy talk, but I'm just talking. I'm just going to keep talking. Right? I remember even saying, let's just share all the dirty laundry, shall we? No, but I remember telling my mom, John and I have decided this and all that. And she was like, oh my God. Now, here's the voice that lives inside of my head. I adore my mom, but she's very like, what will people think? And so she said, but Marty, you stand up there and tell people how to live their lives. And I had this epiphany, and I said, oh, I get it. You think we failed. We didn't. We were conscious. We were together. We're conscious. We're not. Love was never the thing. So how wonderful is that? To become more conscious in our loving in every aspect of our life, with our friends, with our family, with the world around us. To realize that we can stop trying to make others be responsible for our experience. And we can stop taking responsibility for other people's experience. I find just working on myself is enough. It keeps me busy. It keeps me really busy, right? So, my friends, have a great Valentine's Day. Now that I've destroyed it all for you. Great! I would say have a fabulous Valentine's Day. Fall deeply and profoundly in love with yourself. And if there's somebody to share that with, good on you. And if there's not, good on you. Right? It's all good. It's all good. So, just know that wherever you are on this journey, you are spiritual, spiritually divine, humanly unfolding, and it's all good. It's all a process. Let us love the process as well. Let us also pray. As we take this moment to turn inward, to honor and acknowledge that indeed there is one life, one power, one presence, one being. We give it 10,000 names, and one of the names is love. It is the presence of unconditional love unfolding. The spiritual presence that delights in becoming, that delights in expression. It is the very intelligence that has caused all things to be, that has caused this universe, the planets, that causes rain to fall, flowers to grow, our hearts to beat. There is only one divine intelligence, and we live and move and have our being in it. And even as I know that I live and move and have my being in the presence of the divine, in the presence of the beloved, I know that it is the beloved that is expressing in and through and as me. So the word that we speak, the word that I speak here and now, I do so with clarity. For I know each of us is a different facet of the one. Each shining that light differently and uniquely and powerfully. Each working out our own little spiritual predicament. And so let us love the journey. Let us love the light. Let us love the darkness. Let us remember who we are. As we call forth the presence of divine love, we allow ourselves to be healed and transformed through the power of forgiveness, for releasing, for allowing, for accepting. We call forth the presence of wholeness to be revealed as health and vitality and well-being. This is our divine birthright. We are reminded right here and now that we are abundant beings, for we are one with the source and the substance of this creative intelligence. So we allow our hearts and our minds to be open. We joyously give and unconditionally receive of the divine bounty that has been provided for us. We move confidently and joyously through the world. We remain conscious of who we truly are. We seek, as the Master said, we seek first this spiritual dimension, knowing that everything else is added unto us. And so we realize right here, right now, that God is, that all is well. And we give thanks for this. We know that we are blessed. And because we are blessed, we choose to be a blessing. We bless this spiritual community, knowing that it is divinely unfolding, that we are serving to be a light, a presence of love, a presence of joy. We extend this blessing to our brothers and sisters across the world. We're holding that high vision for a planet at peace, for a world that works for all. We're knowing that even in the midst of chaos, there is a greater emergence taking place. And so we hold that high vision. As always, we bless all priests, all rabbis, all ministers, teachers of every faith, for we celebrate the many pathways to the divine. We are reminded that where two or more are gathered, the I Am is there, and something magnificent is revealed. I invite you in this moment to simply place your hand on your heart, to know that that divine intelligence which is beating your heart, expressing through your very being, loves you, wants to express itself more fully through you and as you. And so let us say yes to it. Let us accept the bounty. Let us accept the love. Let us accept the joy and the peace that is simply awaiting our recognition of it. Let us know that it is good and very good. And so we release this word, knowing that it is so. It is with great joy and gratitude, then, I simply allow it to be so, as together we say, and so it is.